We'll start the meeting at 7:02. Is there any public participation? Hearing none. We will go to the OPM scores for the high school. Mr. Tarbell.
Okay. So first of all, thank you all for getting everything sent in to me quickly, efficiently, and timely. And as we all thought, there were 5 very qualified OPMs, and the scores reflected that. As I'll go through them, not one by one, but in general, it was pretty clear who the number 1 choice was, but you know, to spread it out amongst the 5, 4 different groups had number 1 votes. Only 1 group did not have any number 1 or votes. However, that group came in second. So they were very much the middle of the field, but you know, kind of interesting. So number 5 was Doran Whittier. Tied for 4 and 3 were Hill and PMA. Second was Skanska, and first was Left Field. So Left Field had 5 first place votes. PMA had 2, Doran Whittier 2, Hill 1, and Skanska, who ended up as second, had no first place votes. Everybody, all people, all different 5s at some point somewhere had last place, and you know, were scored at least 1 in every one of the categories, which I found to be pretty interesting, except for Skanska, who did not have a first place vote, but they had all the others. Majority of their votes were 90s and 80s, which ranked them. So if you go by score, out of a possible 1,000, Left Field had 860, Skanska had 820, PMA had 780, Hill had 780, and Doran Whittier had 760. When we then go to the other, so that was 75% of the criteria.
70.
Excuse me, 70% of the criteria. 5% of the criteria was on references. So for that point, Left Field scored 100. PMA, Doran Whittier, and Hill, PMA, Doran Whittier, and Skanska all scored 66, getting 2 of 3 people to respond. And Hill had an extremely negative reference. So we scored them a 0. And then going for 20% was the original grouping, which was Left Field, PMA, Doran Whittier, Hill, and Skanska. So given all 3 criteria, and you average them, you know, you get them all put together, it was Left Field being number 1 and Skanska being number 2. So given that, if anybody wants to discuss, we can. Otherwise, I'll make a motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Hearing none, I move that we give Chairman Bertrand permission to enter into negotiations for the OPM for the Wakefield Memorial High School with Left Field. And if he is unsuccessful at negotiating a contract with them, to then open up discussions with Skanska as the number 2 option.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Chip?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot for that. This has been, I
Praise
know
be-
this has not been the easiest thing going. It's been 2 long nights this week and now we got another. And I really appreciate everybody's immediate input on these scores. And it was really pretty interesting, I'll tell you, to have the scores come the way they did. They were really close. After left field, they were all within, 10 points of one another in the final numbers. All right. The second, anything else on the OPM? Hearing none. I'm going to go, the next item was Department of Public Works. They had sent an invoice. Joe Conway sent me an invoice from, what is it, Weston and Sampson? Is that right?
Weston Sampson.
Yeah. And I contacted Joe and left him a voice message saying, look, we had talked a couple meetings ago that we wanted to get a schedule for him to see what the schedule was going to be. And I told him, give me the schedule and we'll put the invoice on for the meeting. I never got anything. So the invoice is not on their meeting. I guess it's a way to prod them into get us the schedule as to what they're looking at before we approve any invoice. So if there's any discussion or issue with that, let me know. If anybody have any problem with that.
Oh,
Absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's,
We're not gonna play games anymore.
I mean, if you want to get paid, do the work, help provide us with the information. It only makes sense.
Hmm.
All right, we told the public safety building is going to start at 7:15, so we got about 6 minutes here until Shane and Lynn and the rest of them come on and we can do the design thing, or unless Janet is on, I see. And who else is on? I see Greg Williamson from Bond is on.
mhm. Robin Greenberg, who's Robin? Public participation, maybe? Yep.
So maybe in the meantime, Janet, you can explain what we're going to do here tonight. Well,
She
maybe-
might not be at her computer.
Yeah, she may have stepped away for a
Yeah.
minute, knowing we didn't want her till 7:15, so.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, I thought she was on, but she may not be. You're right, John. She may not be at the computer.
I guess I have a question. I don't know if it's
Go right ahead.
going back to the OPM, just scoring, just maybe some thoughts from people if it's appropriate to share. I was surprised to hear that Dora and Whittier were 5th out of the 5, based on the scores from, when we did the original scoring. I think they came in 3rd, and then just maybe what sparked such low scores on people for this big portion of it, the 70% portion. I thought they were pretty strong on their interview. Just wondering what I missed.
John, I don't think you missed anything. For me, I want them to be the architect. To be real honest, I know they're gonna go for the architects, so
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I
if they
agree with
got the
that.
OPM, they can't be the architect. They did the whole pre-feasibility study
Yeah.
and they did
no,
a
yeah.
great job with it. So
So
that
it was
was
more-
kind of my thinking.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah,
Good
my
point.
voting was really close, John, and in fact, I was within like 5 points of each of the companies I voted for. I really liked PMA, I really liked Left Field, and then kind of Hill and Dora and Whittier and Skanska were all almost tied for 3rd for me. So, it was a tough choice, but Left Field and PMA really stood out for me, so I had them 1 and 2.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. How many people do not have the old feasibility study from Dora and Whittier? Does anybody not have it? No, everybody's got it?
That was like 6 years ago, right? 7 years ago.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't have a copy of that unless.
I,
it's-
I have, I got an electric copy from Doug Lyons last year, so. if
Right,
anyone
I remember
needs-
you requesting
I
that.
shared it, yeah. If anyone needs, Mark, I can send it to you, but or Joe, I could send it to you to send out whatever is more appropriate, but.
Yeah, you can send them out. If anybody needs it.
I'll take a copy if you don't mind, please.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll take an electronic copy, Phil.
all right.
Yep.
All right,
So, Phil, if you could do that, that'd be great.
yeah,
'Cause if I did it, I'd screw it up. You guys know me.
no, thanks for having faith in me, Joe.
Always, Bill.
I think Janet is back and
Yeah, can you hear
Unmuted.
me? Can you
Yep.
hear
We can
me?
hear you, Janet.
Yes?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So should, did somebody ask me what I was going to do tonight?
Yes,
I'm going to keep this really simple. I have a PowerPoint to go through everything, and I put it has like 50 slides, but I am going to zip through them. I'm not going to bore you to tears. Normally, we would bring a set of drawings and we might flip open and things like that. And I'll just tell you what we've got. And if you're fine with that, we'll end the evening early.
So Janet, have you
Yeah.
met or had any conversations with Bond yet?
No, nothing yet.
Okay.
We are, and it's in my PowerPoint, but the plan is if you approve this tonight, we've collected the drawings. We literally were getting them today. So, we haven't had time to review them, but we're going to put them in a package and send them out to our estimator and to Bond tomorrow. And then on Monday morning, we have a scheduled meeting to talk about the estimate process, how we're gonna do this so we get on the same wavelength. So that's already scheduled, assuming that you'll approve it.
So what are you asking us to approve tonight?
Submission of the ST package to the estimator.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, normally, like I said, we might come and say we have this, and this is the first time I said I've ever done this. I didn't even know what to do for a presentation for this other than say, hey, we've got something. But I'll go through it. I'll keep it quick. If anybody has any specific questions, I can give you more detail. And if I can't answer the question because we just got the drawings in today, I'll find out that answers and I'll get them to you. So
I guess the thing I would like to know, Janet, if you can highlight, we were all involved in the original feasibility study. So we know, I guess, I don't care about minutia changes, if there's any substantial changes
right.
from your working group meetings, from that,
Yep. Okay.
from what you did then to what you've done now.
Sure. Yeah, that's easy. And
I don't think there's a whole lot of substantial. The entrance is
No.
still the entrance. You may have
Exactly.
changed the name on an office or two. I think
Correct.
we did that 3 or 4 times through the process.
Correct. Yeah, I think from the working group meetings, for instance, the plan hasn't substantially changed. We've had to make tiny adjustments based on the code analysis, but nothing big. Really,
Yeah.
literally the way a door swings or where a wall's located or a rating of a space perhaps. So that's pretty good. I do have our envelope consultant was up with there. Let's see, the day starts Tuesday for half a day. He didn't get inside the building, but he'll go back. But he got on the outside, so I have some stuff there that no one's seen yet. So, and it's
Do you
not.
want to just, if I could, do you want to start the meeting so you're not repeating yourself, maybe?
we were just saying, we got.
They were
done
just
early,
asking.
so we were just asking what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, because,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, I'm
we'll
ready.
repeat it all anyway. So.
No. I'm just gonna say I have a PowerPoint.
We're just filling time, Shane. Don't worry, you
Okay.
didn't miss anything.
Yep.
All right, so it is past.
Were you having FOMO, Shane? Fear of missing out?
No. I don't. I like to do it once. So
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 4 or 5 months now. I could probably tell you what John is going to present.
I hope you can, Shane. I'm tired tonight.
I have fear of missing out.
All right,
I'll be honest.
so, Shane, do you have, you need to be a co-host here? Do you have anything?
I don't have anything tonight, Joe.
Okay,
I'm just
all right.
gonna
I
go
made
straight to Janet.
Janet one already.
Okay.
Just for Lynn and Shane and Jim Rogers' benefit, the vote occurred tonight for the high school OPM, and your company came in first, and I will be starting negotiations with Lynn and whoever immediately because we have to report it to the MSBA by April 7th. So
Excellent.
Yay,
Right,
Thank you
right.
very much to the committee.
Very happy.
thank you.
Lynn, call me tomorrow.
I will.
Joe, it'll be a very easy negotiation.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, Jim, you're working for free again? That's what, Joe, I don't know. That's just what I heard.
That's what I heard. And I can assure you, Jim, don't bet on it, buddy.
Thank you guys very much.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
So,
Okay,
that-
John. Yeah. So I'm going to share, my screen. I have a PowerPoint. So I'm going to, can you see it?
Yep, we can see
Yep,
it.
we can see it.
Okay, okay.
Oh, perfect.
So,
Big screen.
and again, I'm going to go through it fast, so you can stop me at any point. So what we're here to do is get the approval of schematic design so that we can move into the estimate process. I have a series of reports to talk about geotechnical code, asbestos containing material identification, preliminary envelope review, and then we have schematic level documents, and then we'll talk a little bit about next steps. And I literally am going to go through this. We don't have to read it. We did 3 borings. They were between 26 and 27 feet deep. The one at the Sally Port, the surface materials and the overlying fill were not suitable for supporting foundations, and we will have to excavate and replace those. And the 2-3-story addition, we had much the same results. Either the topsoil, the overlying fill was suitable for supporting foundations. Not surprised, but that's the way it is. And then the B21-3, which is a new entry, it also had non-suitable bearing stratum, but the overlying fill was made up of coarse sand with trace amounts of silt, coal, coarse gravel, ceramics, brick, and wood, and also not suitable for supporting foundations. So there is, at the glacial till was accounted in all 3 borings. The boring depth, the glacial till was, went beyond that, but it was fine to coarse sand and trace coarse gravel and silt with some boulders, and is considered a suitable bearing stratum for foundations. So, and I'll explain what that means in a second briefly. And then groundwater was observed in the B21, 2, and 3, which are the ones on Union Street at the depth of 9.4 feet and 7.5 feet below the existing ground surface. Water is introduced during the borehole, so, but there was water, and, that also was not unexpected perhaps, but it does have some bearing. So the implications of this is the reuse of the fill may be possible in the 2 of the borings areas, but not in boring 3 where construction debris was observed. Then you can either take that fill out, take out the organics, reuse it, or import new stuff. So that's, one of 2 options. So the foundation systems are pretty column and wall footings bearing on suitable bearing materials, and that's in 1 and 2. And in 3, which is at the entry, we're going to have a deep foundation system of piles to maximize the capacity. So in 2 of the areas of construction, we'll have to take all that fill out, refill it, and bear. In number 3, we're just going to leave what's in there, and the boards, the piles or whatever will go right through that down to the surface where they can bear. And there was no liquefaction evaluation, which is good because that would have cost some money and at that point. So there is some differential settlement that should be anticipated. Movement joists we should be allowed to incorporate to allow for the movement between the buildings. There's a variety of foundation systems. I think you remember shallow spread footings and deep caissons in the original 2003 edition. And of course, they all move slightly differently. So we'll be preparing for that. The Geotech report also tells you about foundation bearing materials, wet condition details, slab details, support, suitable construction materials, and ground modifications. So it's an extensive report. We have a copy of that. Our structural engineers have had that. We've had that, and for such tiny little additions, the soil is pretty pitiful. So that's just simply the way it is. It's not very different than what you had before. From the code summary report, because of the amount of work we're doing, it comprises less than 50% of the floor area. So it's classified as a level 2 alteration. There's different levels of alteration, and the work areas will not exceed 50%. So there's no change in occupancy. So that's all good news for the code. The proposed uses remain the same. The big issues that the code people were very concerned about was the detention center, and that's all in good shape with the 2-hour separation. Anything we touch, we've got to make sure we maintain that. They ask about ammunition quantity. There's certain standards, so they'll want to give more update on what is kept on site. Most likely it is type 3B construction. The fire alarm and detection and sprinklers, everything like that will be maintained, extended, and modified as needed. And the height and area is compliant. So that was really good news. Nothing extraordinary, very small details of change. We still have 2 means of egress. There is one egress issue, and it's not going to be a problem. It's where the stair wall into the new lobby. And so, I think we've worked that out already. The building is only assessed $7.7 million. So we've exceeded the 30% threshold with any renovation. So we'll have to make sure, and I think these things are not a problem: accessible entry, toilet rooms, handrails, vertical access, maneuvering clearance of doors, and accessible seating all have to be met. The rest of it is, ADA standards, plumbing fixtures sufficient to meet code. Talk about mechanical, reconfigured and new spaces must have natural mechanical ventilation, and existing spaces that are altered must meet basic ventilation. So that's all pretty straightforward from the code. Nothing extreme here.
So Janet, just on the
Yes.
I can't remember the vertical. I can't remember the term used. The vertical access, is that the elevator?
Yeah, that's the elevator.
So
Yeah.
but we don't need to do anything to that, right?
No, we don't need to do
Right
anything.
now.
It's already existing. It's accessible. So, the elevator runs between all the levels, has front and back doors, so there shouldn't be a problem. They didn't have a problem with any of the existing egress. You have more than 2 forms of egress out of this building because of the hill. You're coming out, in the middle of streets, all kind of things. You're not restricted to the 2 stairs. In fact, there are 3 stairs in the building, but you're only required 2. So
Okay,
it's
so
just their comment is continuity of all the egress points. They don't want anything to change. So
we didn't intend to touch the elevator, and that's still.
yeah, we don't have to. No, we're
And
all
then
set.
just down below there, energy conservation stretch energy code.
Yeah, they noted that Wakefield has adopted the stretch energy code.
It hasn't yet.
I don't think we
It
have.
hasn't yet. Oh, it has
No.
not. Oh, good. Well, not good, but I mean.
Well, isn't it going to be voted on at the next town?
Yeah, it's going to be
Meeting,
voted
yeah.
on in the May town meeting. So
No,
Okay.
TBD.
it more than likely will be applicable. That's what I
Maybe
want.
that's what they were looking at and assumed that it would. I'll ask him about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yep.
I know it's going to be voted on in the May town meeting. So I'm sure that is something that will be applicable if it passes.
Yeah. So all anything we add will have to make the latest code stuff, but we won't be going back and modifying any existing installation stuff. Anything we touch, we have to bring up to meet the code. So I will. I'll talk to both the code folk and the PFP folk about that.
So that's just in areas where we're putting on additions, Janet?
Yeah, so anything, anything that I believe, and again, I want to check with them, but I think anything that we touch has to meet the current code. It won't match the old code. I think this old building has bad insulation in the frame. Well, we don't do that anymore. We haven't done that in 20 years. So everything is outboard, of the framing system. So we build buildings different than what we did 20 years ago. We're not going to go back and modify anything that isn't being touched. So that's a level 2. The level 2, basically says, reconfigure or extension of any system or new equipment. So it's always about the new stuff that you have to meet. So.
And then I just have I had
yeah.
one other question, sorry,
Yes.
on, because the 30% threshold being met, is there anything on the side of the building we're not on the fire side that we're not planning to touch that needs to be touched now in order to meet this, or?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm thinking all the administration spaces will be accessible, and they're on the first floor. Firefighters, I believe, and this is, their spaces do not have to be accessible because they have to be able-bodied to work. Like I've done a fire station where we have one stair, no elevator to a second floor because it was a substation, but that's the read at but it also means if, for instance, if this building wasn't fully accessible, which it is, that no one could go up onto those floor levels. No, not a select board member, not a member of this building committee, no one, only the fire folks. But it's not the case in this, the whole building is accessible. So I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. So.
Thanks.
Asbestos containing materials, our guy got out there, he got tested. They did 56 bulk samples from both the 1950 and 2003 buildings. They did with the ceiling tiles, joint compounds, old black mastic residue, caulking, old roofing, framing. They tested it all. No asbestos was detected. That is excellent news. They did have 2 observations and recommendation. There's old residue caulking observed on the upper tower windows. It was too high to access, so they couldn't test it. No one gets up there, but they noted that. And then they also noted that they have proofing on the exterior walls of the 19 building were assumed to exist and is assumed to contain asbestos. So we'll have to deal with that, the removal of that, because we will be cutting through those walls to get into the new part of the building. So we're going to have to deal with that. But that's really good news, generally. Their comment to me was, when I asked them to get out there quickly, was you would be surprised what you find in new buildings. But he didn't find that, so we're in good shape with that.
So are we required to test that caulking at the tower if we're not?
No, I mean, they test, you mean the caulking or the damp proofing?
Sorry, the residue caulking observed at the tower windows?
I don't think so. We're not touching it. No one can reach it. They couldn't reach it. So I don't, I'll follow up with them and ask them where exactly they saw it. But, the tower is quite tall. So I am assuming it's up at the uppermost part. Joe, do you remember if they replaced those windows in the original when you renovated?
I don't think they did.
Yeah, because if they had
historically accurate as we could and didn't touch as much as we could that hose tower.
Yeah, so I'm betting that that they just let it in place, and
there's no way to get up there. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean, you could get up there, but why in this case? Exactly. So we will have to deal with the damp proofing, though. That's for certain. So our envelope guy, he did get out there, as I said. I was talking, and he had some. He was in the office today for another meeting, so we sat down and we chatted. He took a lot of pictures. He did the exterior. He's gonna do more. He's gonna write it up and he's gonna note what he did. But the initial thing was the masonry is in good shape. There's some visible efflorescence, and you can see it in this. When I get a laser pointer, you can see it right here on the side of the building, and it's right here. Same efflorescence. My pictures from 4 years ago, there was no efflorescence, which is sort of surprising because this is the 1950s building. He wasn't sure why. This part of the building is going to be enclosed in the new building. So I said to him, what should I do about it? And he said, you might want to clean it, before we enclose it. But otherwise, it shouldn't be an issue. He didn't see it turn the corner at all. So, I don't know if you guys.
What is efflorescence?
It's a leaching. It's a leaching of, I think it's salts from the brick. Okay. You see it on a lot of new buildings where, I I don't know what this is exactly. He couldn't tell me exactly, but you can see it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen it before.
Yeah.
He said it might come and go, like, it might wash itself off, and then just appear for reasons, you can't figure out. You might not see it always, but I don't know if you guys have noticed it.
Yeah. It can also be a sign of water getting in the masonry, and that's what's causing it to leach so much in those specific areas because,
but he didn't see.
we're
he
covering
didn't
it
see.
anyways, right? Like this is the
Yeah, we
whole-
are covering it, so he's not worried. And he said the mortar and is also in very good shape. And so he couldn't quite figure out, you'd have to do some real investigation to figure out where that is. And, he didn't really think he wasn't worried about it. Let's put it that way. But what he needs to do, and I will say this is, everything he saw, he's going back into the existing drawings from 2003, and he's going to look at how the details were formed. And then he's going to, that might help him figure out, what he's looking at a little bit more. All of the sealant is failing or nearing failure throughout the whole building. He also pointed out, and you could see him putting his business card in through the joints, that it doesn't appear there's any backer rod. It's either gone, missing, solved, whatever. And he said the joints are quite tight. So, repairing them is also a bit of a challenge when you have those conditions. So he's going to think about that. But, you can see all the joints, the failure, you can see it's all cracked. And I could blow that up unless you can't. I don't know if you can see that. But
We can see it.
yeah, you can see it in there. So, he's probably going to recommend, and that is not in our scope right now. So, and he's talking about new and old. You can see these pictures are all new from the new building.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what this mess is in this corner. I've never, he took a zillion pictures, but you look at that, that's not pretty. I don't know what all that is, but so anyhow, he's gonna comment on that. He also noticed a real inconsistency on weep holes. And for those, weep holes, when you build a wall, you flash underneath, where brick meets another surface, or above windows, so that the water doesn't go behind the windows, between surfaces, and you provide these weep holes or open head joints, so the water that gets behind brick, because it does get behind masonry, has a place to come out. And they're just not where they're supposed to be, or they're really, sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. And they're like, for instance, here, there's flashing, but there's no weep holes. So you put flashing and the water comes down, but it has to have a way to get out. So we couldn't figure that out. Like here's some of your precast lintels, or the precast banding on the building. This one has a joint. This one does not. Maybe, these weep holes are up here. He would have expected to see them here where there might be flashing, and there's no flashing. No weep holes at the heads. So very inconsistent. He didn't know what that was all about. So he wanted to look at the drawings. And there's more pictures, but he wanted to figure out if they didn't own them, if people like randomly put them in, or they owned them but they didn't put them in, or did they own them in the wrong plane. So he's going to look into that. If you don't have a lot of problems inside, he didn't know what that meant, but again, it's an issue, or it could be an issue. And then he had some other things. There's this rising gable, this gable with this rising wall here. He thought this was a little suspect in here, but he couldn't get up onto it. And he said, if you're going to do any real look into all of this along the way, he said you might want to do a little bit more destructive investigation to determine what's going on there. It's not clear. And so again, he's going to look at the details. It's hard to see where the flashing is, and how it's weak and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, water comes down, and you run its stuff that goes under the roof and up into the masonry, so that water doesn't come down and get into the roof, or has a place to go. And he wasn't unclear on that. There's some lintel deflection in the original 1950 building. So the lintel there, I think I can blow that up so you can see it. So you can see that bend here in the lintel. So, it's probably been there for a long time. He says you might consider, getting in there and repairing that. All the windows on the front of the building a lot of them have that same condition. And I said, well, I'm taking out the windows and I'm going to infill with drywall, or they're going to be cut down to a doorway opening into the addition. Is it worth it? He said he would suggest that we have the structural engineer look at that to make sure. But he thinks it might, because it's not going to take any wear anymore, wind, water, whatever, it might be just fine. But the ones on the other side, he said you might want to talk about replace them. But he said, we'll wait to see what a structural engineer says about it. So I'll have Lynn look at that. And then there's a little bit of this kind of stuff, all around. There's these lintels on the new part of the building are all peeling. He thinks that perhaps someone tried to paint a galvanized lintel and it didn't stick. It'll never stick to that. So, whether you want to go around and look at owning painting of all that. One thing here, we have this in our drawings as well. This is the low wall on the apparatus apron that constantly gets hit by, as they clear the apron of snow and they push it against this wall. This wall's in terrible shape. It's got moss growing on its water. You can see it's just a mess. This, here's the cap of it. You can see the wall pushing part. I think that we ought to discuss whether we should take that wall down to the high point, where the grade meets, and possibly cap it, and then put a rail above it, so that because I think if we repair this wall, which we will do, it's going to keep getting knocked over. There's nothing we can do about it because of how they plow the snow and park. So something to consider, but this is not in good shape as it exists. So, and I know this was talked about when we did the study as well. So we need to discuss that and whether it's worth just pulling that wall down to the grade and dispensing with the constant masonry repairs. So that's something to discuss. So these were it for him as far as general topics we covered. There were 88 pictures that we were trying to flash through them. I picked a dozen of them to look at with you. So that'll be a discussion we can have. Generally, I don't own any of this I own some repair of this wall, but I don't own things like this because it wasn't part of the initial study, is going back and doing repainting. I'm going to ask him to mark up drawings, and then we can talk about how we deal with it in the estimate, whether we put a number to them and own a scope, and then see where we are. The question becomes, are these general maintenance questions, or are these a capital project? So, I don't know what budgets are for repairing things like that. The next thing is does anybody have any questions about all those reports besides what's been asked? So all the report information will go to the cost estimator as well, just for information, and different people have the work. We're incorporating some of that information into drawings and things like that immediately. So, all right. So,
are we going to give the cost estimators a scope of work, Janet? Are you looking for some answers?
Well, this is all new. This is all new because he just was there Tuesday. But there is a scope that like we hadn't planned on replacing all the sealant in the building, for instance. I mean, he said every opening is in this tough shape. And he says it's 18 to 20 years old. He said it's about the time that, you should address sealant. Do you want to do that now is the question, or do you want to do it as a part of a general maintenance? How does the town handle sealant at windows and doors on aged buildings? I guess that's a general question. So, Joe, do you have a thought on that?
I have a thought on that, Janet, if Joe doesn't.
Yeah, I think it should be part of general maintenance, to my view.
Right. What we've done in the past is that we can note it. Right. And sometimes, like every town or everything else, we love to add deferred maintenance into a construction project, but we try to keep the two separate. Like if it doesn't have to do with what we're doing, and so we can always put it as an ad alternate, so that when your bids come in, $1 million low, we can then take care of those things.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Or the town can decide to add money to take care of the deferred maintenance and do it outside our budget, but with the contractors that are on site.
Right, that was, I was thinking that we have it as sort of as an add-on and keep it separate, so that we can make that decision down the road.
So we should start tracking that now with the estimator.
Yeah, I think I'll toss it, yeah, I'll,
Track it.
yeah, I mean, right now, they can take off the perimeter window, all the windows and see doors and get, length of the ceilings, and then we're dealing with the low wall as part of this project, but the lintels, I'm going to get the structural engineer. I think that might one of those might be part of the project. So it's a mixed bag. He needs to do a little bit more work, but there's some stuff here. There's some money here. So.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Is there any chance that some of this stuff might be on these towns' capital maintenance plan right now?
No,
I could tell you very quickly, no, because they wouldn't know what to look at, or
not only that, Wayne,
they wouldn't be examining a building at this level.
not only that, Wayne, I'm the liaison on the finance committee for the capital planning.
Oh, I didn't know.
Phil is on it, right?
Yeah, I'm on the capital planning. It hasn't been on any ask in the past 5 years. I can't imagine something like this popping up. I agree with the ad alt.
Yeah, I think what we could probably do is take a set of drawings, the elevations, and highlight all of the things and deal with it. Any of them that fall into that category. Anything that falls into let's replace the lintels is we can do that.
Quick question.
Yes.
From a town standpoint, Joe and Chip and Phil, I guess, who's in charge of overall overseeing the maintenance of the town buildings?
DPW.
DPW.
And there's a person, Chris, who is the facilities director.
I mean, I don't know, being a taxpayer, stuff that we're seeing in pictures here, just being a taxpayer and having been a facilities director for another town for a long time. It seems to me some of these things should be on a town's buildings list as opposed to coming up as a capital expenditure by an outside.
That's why we're going to separate it, Wayne.
All right.
Okay. All right.
It's not a surprise why the windows are leaking on Center Street with the lack of flashing and sealants
Yeah.
around those windows.
Yeah,
Correct.
I did talk a little bit, I said to him, there might have, he said flashing can deteriorate over here. You know what kind of flashing they use, does it have end dam? One thing is, sometimes
Probably
people,
not.
they don't have end dams, which is when the flashing turns, because if the water comes down onto a, I hope you can see it. When water comes down, it goes off, but it also runs to the edges. So if you don't turn up that flashing at the edges, the water just pours off the ends. So, it's a combination of how the flashing is done. He said it's also possible, there was the 3 windows on the side of the building that we talked about. He said it's possible that there's a missing up at the top of the original limestone. That was a flat roof. And when they added the brick above it, it's possible that there's not a good flashing joint there. You can't see it. Sometimes the flashing just ends right at the, right at the tip. It doesn't sort of overlap the edge. You can't really see it. And with the lack of weeps that we saw, it's hard to tell. So he's going to do a little bit more digging and see what he can see. Whether they flash it continuously, whether they had appropriate weep holes at appropriate intervals, et cetera, and see if we can figure out why. Otherwise, the next step is to do some destructive work to see if we can figure things out, take some things apart, and look and see, and kind of hone in on why some of those leaks might be happening. So anyhow, so there's documents, there's drawings, and there's narratives or civil site, landscape, architectural, structural, and MEPFP, which and then just to let you know what we're thinking of the estimate process, we send our documents to the cost estimator and the CM if approval is received. Our cost estimator did say the political climate has seen some fluctuations over the past year that may affect the results. I mean, bids were really down, and now they're coming up dramatically. All kinds of wild things in the past 3 months that is unpredictable what's happening out there. So on Monday, as I was saying, if it's approved tonight, get the drawings out. We're going to have a meeting on Monday morning to discuss the details of the estimating process with bond, with TCI, with HPT, so that it's pretty clear how we're approaching the estimate, so that when we do any reconciliation, we're all coming up from the same point. It's a 3-week time frame for us and our cost estimator. They do their work. We review their initial results, and we send it out to our team, so everybody takes a look at it from their own individual viewpoints. We confirm that scope. We ask questions. We go back and forth, and then the estimator refines the document based on those comments and resubmits to us. Then there'll be a reconciliation. I assume there'll be a reconciliation session with the CM's work, and then there'll be a final presentation of the estimate to the permanent building committee. Shane, I think we talked about that on the phone, but I just thought it was worth writing it out so everybody understands what we're going to be doing over these next 4 weeks, assuming that this all goes smoothly. So, any questions about this?
I sent the agenda out for Monday, and I think if we get the documents tomorrow or early next week, that'll give us plenty of time to get the estimate by the end of the month.
Right.
That's not a working.
So do you have a
routine, right?
date?
That's separate.
It's just really for the estimators,
Okay.
Philip, to make sure they're on the same page, that when they do the estimate, they're doing it the same format and the same.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have a week that we think that the estimate will be ready to present to us?
I think we had said the 29th of April.
Right. 29th of April. The cost, my cost estimator said he needs 20 working days to do it, which makes, that's the 4 weeks,
So that's not going to be the 29th.
I don't know what that day is.
We'll see. We'll talk on Monday. We'll get you a date.
We'll talk.
Okay.
I've done $100 million high schools in 4 weeks. We'll get this.
Yeah, so we'll work it out, but we want to give, this is such an important estimate for us. We want to give everyone enough time, and it's still only schematic design, so there's limited information available, but we want to make sure we have everything we need to really get a handle on what we're doing. I'm going to literally fly through these drawings. There's more than, yes.
For that,
Yes.
you've been in contact with Bond, and Bond, they're all set for that?
Yeah,
Shane,
Bond are on tonight.
They're meeting Monday, Joe.
All right, that's what I'm going to make sure that they're all set, because I know Dave's on the.
Yeah. Yeah, Shane arranged that
Okay.
last week, maybe, I don't even know, or this week, on Monday, I think. So, we're on board. I made sure my cost estimator, he absolutely wants to be at this meeting. He doesn't want that start without this meeting, so I think it's important for all of us. So I'm going to fly through these. I got like 20 drawings here. So we have civil drawings. We have landscape drawings, which they have very little work. 6 blades of grass and moving a paving. But we have our architectural drawings. Now that they have all of the dimensions, all the door tags, all the schedules. General notes, plan keynotes. So these are the 3 sets of plans. This is the roof scope right now, the 3 additions in the roof in between where the mechanical units are going. That's what we're going to own right now. We have reflected ceiling plans. We have all the elevations, and I have to say Revit does not translate well to PowerPoint because you need JPEGs, but these are, all the drawings you can see. These are now technical drawings with key tags and all that kind of stuff on it. This is the tower. I think these are the windows in the tower, Joe, probably that we're not looking at. Yeah, they're pretty far up there.
We'll have Chip go up there and.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a couple. The fire department has a few ladders. They can probably get up there, but we have some sections, some details of different various things. We have toilet rooms and elevations, accessory schedules, cabinetry details, door schedules, floor details, transition door windows, finish schedules, interior partitions, things like that. So they have a range of information, schedules and details to look at. And then there's a whole set of demolition drawings. I only put one in here, showing everything, what's going away. So there's a whole series of those. And also for the elevations, of course. There are some structural drawings showing the scope of the work and what they're doing. There's a whole series. I think there's, I don't know, there's something like 40 or something drawings from the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection engineers, mechanical drawings, including demolition of the existing. This is the these are electrical demolition drawings, and then there's all the new stuff that goes with it. They have schedules. Highlighting the different part. This is fire protection drawings, sprinklers, and then there's I think I don't know exactly. I think there's like 71 drawings in this set right now. So after that, I just want to say to you the next steps right now is the current schedule is that while the estimates are being prepared, the design team will continue their work. Tomorrow we'll start the review of the schematic phase. After we send them out, we'll review the schematic phase documents, see what we've got, what we think, what we know is missing, what we want to ask questions about the consultants. And then we'll be launching right into the design development documents because of the schedule. We don't have we have rolling reviews, so no stop time. And then of course these are the negative points. Should the estimate exceed the budget discussion, will begin immediately on what we're going to have to do to get the budget into, or the building into the budget, so to speak. Other issues that may affect the timeline are we heard during the interviews, early release packages and changes to foundations and structure. If there's any of this that's happening, the project was built around design bid build. We determined how we're building it. We determined the time frame. We thought it's scheduled based on that. If early release packages come into play or anybody changes foundations and structures, then we're going to have to that could delay or increase our scope because stopping to do early release packages does have implications for the schedule and budget. And then if somebody decides that they don't like the foundations or the structure or something, because and sometimes I work with CMs where there's a good reason to change it, either materials or schedule. I know I've been talking to structural engineers on my other projects, and there's such long lead time items for trusses, steel trusses, this and that. It's just incredible. So we'll be working with Bond and Shane to figure out what these mean to the project. So, and that's it for me.
So I have a question.
Yes.
When it gets to schedule and talk about estimating, the one piece I didn't see here, which I think will affect cost, is phasing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when do we start talking about a legitimate phasing sequence, if nothing more, so that at the end we don't hear, oh, I thought this was all being done in a vacant building or
Right.
something crazy.
Right. Well, Shane and I have been talking, and I'll let Shane take most of it, but Jane and I have been talking about this, whether we we do a percentage now, or whether we include Shane's phasing or something else. So Shane, why don't
Yeah,
you take
I
that?
think at this point, and that's why we're having the meeting with the estimators tomorrow to come up with this, or on Monday to come up with a strategy. At schematic level, Chip, I think it may just be a percentage to allow for the premium that the phasing will have on the project, which is what was done at the study phase, or the study estimate. And as we get into design development with Bond coming out of design development, we'll have a detailed phasing schedule for that. And that'll be included in the design development estimates. But
Okay, well, when you guys decide how you're gonna do it, I'd love to know what your strategy is.
Yeah, it's not simple. And you know, I'm looking forward to hearing what Bond feels is a good approach. And, you know, we've got to deal with public entry points and obviously maintaining, you know, full operations for both the police and the fire departments, and what spaces we can use. And I think, you know, I think will be something we'll want to tackle next week as soon as possible. We'll come up with a concept of how to do these estimates, but then we'll dig into it immediately so that we, you know, we have a good plan.
Right.
And, yeah.
So,
Yep.
I have another.
Yep.
My question, having just selected an OPM for the high school, Janet, we talked a lot about, and this may be for Chief Scory and Craig and their group as well. At what point do we start thinking about a website, some sort of public outreach, just to let people know what's going on? Because I think it's been pretty quiet in town. And maybe it's after schematic designs or something. Or Chief, do you just want to go under the radar until this thing's done?
No, based on my experience with projects in town, particularly road construction, it's beneficial to keep people up to date and ahead of the game on what's going on. So I think that, you know, right now, if you drive around the building, the other day they put out some road graffiti. Dig Safe was out there. So I think probably fairly soon would be a good time to start creating some type of website to keep people up to date on what's going on.
So maybe, do you have somebody in your department, Chief? Or because it would be with the OPM that you guys would do it collaboratively, or at least know what was going out before it went out.
Yeah, preferably we can post it to our social media sites, but I would like it to come from the OPM so that the information's accurate.
So that's what I was going to say. So I know there is stuff on the website, on the town website, and linked to your website. So we can certainly start feeding you, you know, whatever you need. We can put these schematic documents up.
Well, I think I think what makes more sense is to put it, is maybe even created its own website to have, you know, to go through this whole process. It might make sense to do that. We got to explore that.
Well, Shannon, I think you should just start thinking about it and what your thoughts are, and, you know, let's do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Chip, I can talk to Jen McDonald, the town's communications manager, and see what she thinks is best. And if Shane feeds us the information, we'll get it out there. She's very good, and she's much better at it than I am.
Super. That, as long as we have a collaborative effort, and the only thing I would do is be careful to make sure that whatever we put out there is understandable and accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say that putting a schematic design package could be very difficult for people to understand what the
Right. I think I'd probably just do more timeline or something, just so people kind of know what's going on. Put the drawings out there. They're going to think that's what's getting built, and
just keep it real high level. Timelines are exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, you have the color drawings that we did, and they're still pretty accurate, you know.
Or maybe just the rendering that shows the new entrance in front. I mean, and then what the building will look like, that's probably sufficient.
Yeah, and I think it'll become more important as the phasing enters into thinking and get it for people prepared for the construction. You know, when Bond comes up with the plan for how they're going to stage it, you know, even construction, and kind of get people ready for that. I think that'll be really valuable. So,
Janet, can I ask a couple of questions about something about what you've already talked about?
Yep.
In the schematic design, were you able to do anything with the area above what we call the penalty box, the room with the glass ceiling off the lobby?
Not right now. That's an egress space, so I did talk to the code people about it, and I will talk to them again about it. But it didn't look likely that it was going to be a positive thing for you, so a positive pickup. But I will check that again for that. Okay.
Okay. And then my other question,
It's within a rated area, and so you can't really have any. You can't have a working space off of a fire stair, so it's tricky.
okay, it just seemed like it would have been nice to utilize that space.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Totally agree.
So my second question is, you talked about the inconsistency about the weep holes and the masonry.
Yep.
If the moisture doesn't have a place to escape the way it should, would that result in mold behind the masonry? And if it does, how does that affect the budget for the project?
It's possible. You haven't seen any mold growth in there, have you?
No, we haven't seen it. We haven't smelt it, but just a question. I didn't know if that was an issue. That could.
I will bring that up again to, when I was talking to Bob, his name's Bob, we're not doing any destructive work to figure out anything. And I'll ask him what he thinks about that, the possibility of mold. I'll bring that up. I'll give him a call tomorrow and ask him if he thinks, he wants to come back, since he didn't make it inside the building. I said to him, Bob, you got to be pushy. And he said, I could be pushy. I said, okay. So I think.
What was the issue about why
he doesn't know. When he came in, he identified himself and said, and I don't know who was there, but they kind of said, basically, I don't know who you are, and you can't get into the building, sort of thing. And so he said, well, I'll work outside. And when he came back in, he sort of asked it again, and it didn't get anywhere. So he didn't push a whole lot, and that was partly my fault. I think I told people hidden names, but I don't think he had your names. I said I would have just said, can I talk to the chief or the deputy, something. So he said he'll come back. So he'll come back.
How about set up an appointment for him to come back instead of just showing up unannounced?
Well, no, he didn't show up unannounced. Everybody knew he was coming. It just didn't get down perhaps to the person that he talked to, and that's okay. He's not a big deal. He said he'll go back, and then we can, he'll do a little bit more, and then he might recommend a couple, some of those things that we talked about, whether, it's valuable. Would he think that water could be, well, because it wasn't, those weed pools weren't just missing or in the 50s building. It was all over, it was all over the place, and so that's why he wants to dig into, he has all the existing drawings. He wants to dig into the drawings a bit more and see what was owned and what wasn't. And, it's sometimes what happens when you, when they put, the weeps are little tubes sort of thing, think of it. And sometimes the mortar, they put them in, but the mortar closes it up. Sloppy construction, that's possible. He said it's very possible because you could see some in some places and you can't see them in others. So that's why he was curious. So he needs to dig into that a little bit too. So I'll talk to him tomorrow. What else?
The only other thing I had was, I can't wait to use the word efflorescent in conversation with somebody. Telling I know what I'm talking about.
Nice.
So thank you for that one.
Okay, you should use liquefaction. That's even tougher,
That and glacial till. I'm gonna throw that one around too.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So Shane, I guess we technically, do we need them to vote? Is that what we need them to do, or is just say yes, go? Or
I don't think we need to vote. I'm seeing this set of documents for the first time.
Shane, I can't hear you at all. Could you?
Yeah.
Got it? Can you hear me?
Yep.
You sound like you're in a fish tank.
Not sure what. No, it looks like a complete set of documents. You know, in fact, you got finishing schedule, you got casework, mill work on those drawings. So I don't think we need to take a vote. I'm happy to send this set to the estimators and get them moving and you know, get the costs back to the committee in 4 weeks' time.
I couldn't hear him at all. Could anybody interpret that?
I think he said that we didn't need a vote, but I kind of disagree. I think we should have a vote to just to memorialize it, to have it go to the estimator. What does everybody else think?
Yeah,
I'm
I think
good
that's
with
what
that.
Shane was saying.
Yeah.
I think he said we should vote.
Okay, I couldn't hear
Okay.
him either. I didn't know if he said.
I mean, Joe?
Yeah.
I mean, we can certainly vote. It doesn't hurt to vote.
No.
I mean, we've approved the project, we've approved the budget. We've approved the timeline. We've approved the process. So do I think that we need a vote? No. Will it memorialize that we've now all seen it and are comfortable with what's going to the estimator? Fine, but you know, I don't think we need to vote every time the next step is being made.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I'm happy to vote, Mr. Chairman, if you think we should, but I don't think it's necessary.
I actually would prefer it.
Okay,
Just so that it's in the minutes.
then I make a motion that we accept the schematics to the stage that they are, and that we authorize the team to move forward in the estimating process.
And I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Chip,
Yes,
Jason,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
okay. Shane, before we, anything, anybody, did Dave or Greg or Dario, you guys have anything?
You hear me now?
I think we can address anything that we sort of obtained out of this meeting on our on Monday meeting.
Okay, great.
Just wanted to say thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you as well.
All right.
Shane,
Yeah.
will you be publishing minutes from Monday's meeting? Who's gonna document decisions, discussions, that type of thing?
I'll put together minutes for Monday and get them out. It's you know, we have this as a public meeting. It's just for the estimators to make sure they're on the same page.
No, it's more for our internal, just
Right.
to know
Yeah.
what happened and where we're going and
Yeah.
next steps and timetables.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be minutes per se. It could be just a memo as to what occurred and what was
Right.
decided.
I'll do that for the estimators anyway. Coming
And
in.
also very important, a date as to when we should gather again.
Joe, you don't want to meet every day, every other
We already
day?
have, and I don't want to.
3 out of 4.
We've now made Joe stay 3 hours and 15 minutes longer than he's ever been in a meeting before.
Okay, Jane, is there anything else? Janet, anything else?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Regarding our next meeting, and it has to do with, not with with this, because I don't think we need anything to do until we get the estimation. Is that correct?
Yeah, just did you get the contracts today, Joe?
Yeah, Chief?
Say that again,
Shane
Joe.
is looking to confirm that you got the contracts, Joe.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah, so
Like today, this huge box landed on my desk and it injured my finger, but that's okay.
From
Yeah,
a
good job.
purely business point of view, Joe, if we don't meet with you for another month or plus, can we submit an invoice? Because we'll have an invoice going out tomorrow or Monday or something for
No,
our work in March.
I anticipate that we should meet in 2 weeks, not necessarily on this project, at the beginning of the high school.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so we can submit something and you can
Right. Does everybody? does
Well,
everybody-
my bet will be DPW will have a schedule by then.
Yeah, since we're not doing their invoice, I bet it too.
Yeah. So we'll have that invoice, we'll have Janet's invoice.
Yeah.
We'll for this month, we'll have Shane and Lynn, so we'll probably have some invoices, so we probably have to meet in a couple Thursdays.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We'll meet on the 15th. Hopefully at that time, I assume that we will have an agreement with Left Field on the high school OPM. As I indicated, I have to get them information on the 7th. And I don't know exactly, then the MSBA has to vote on that to approve it. And I don't know if anybody can add anything to that as to when they do that. Do they do that right away, or what's the story? Anybody know?
I believe you go to the MSBA OPM
Open
panel,
but that'll be probably a month or two out.
May 7th or May 5th, I think.
So Lynn, are we allowed to work at risk in the meantime, which we're happy to do? Are we, with the MSBA?
We can execute the contract and yes, we can, but it's not formal until MSBA approves it at the OPM panel.
Right, so we'll do whatever we can not to have that impact the project, guys. We'll keep going, even though it's probably a month out before the MSBA approves.
And is the OPM process now with the MSBA, do we have to have people go present? What's that process?
Yes, we present in front of the OPM panel.
It's probably a 20-minute presentation, Chip, and there's usually.
They all know my name, and that's not just with me, but all the.
That was the MSBA listening in.
It's probably a 20-minute presentation, Chip, and we usually bring a couple folks from the town with us to make the presentation, but it's
and it'll probably still be virtually, like.
Oh, that's true. That's true, Lynn. Exactly.
All right, and you think that's sometime in May?
That would be the first opportunity. It depends
Yes.
on how busy their schedule is.
Okay.
That's why I said 1 to 2 months.
But the OPM selection thing is not like the designer thing.
No.
No, but
Who knows? Everything changes every day.
yeah,
so
that's what I was saying. They may have comments or whatever. You just,
you don't take anything for granted.
right.
All right, so then I still think that it makes sense to meet in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And we'll see where we're at that time as well, and maybe at that time we'll know when we're gonna present to the MSBA, et cetera. Okay.
But we can, what
Joe,
we
on
can
that-
do is start
Schedule.
the RFS for the designer selection in
Yep.
advance, so that as soon as we get approval, that very week, we can advertise for the designer.
Okay, somebody else, John, I think you were saying something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, on that, you had sent out some dates before, and it was May 3rd was the MSBA panel for OPM selection.
I knew I had sent out dates. I just don't have all those things in front of me. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Oh, May 3rd.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so the next
Hey,
meeting,
I just have a quick question, Lynn. Do we have an opportunity like we did for the public safety building to just go with the architect that did the feasibility for the high school? Is that a possibility?
no.
No,
Okay, I figured the answer was no, but I thought I'd ask.
yeah, they're gonna want you to go through MSBA's designer selection
Yeah.
process.
Okay,
We can make that our strong preference and push it, Chip, if it comes to that. But yeah, it's.
well, at this point, I think there's enough committee members that may not know Doran Whittier as architects.
Yeah.
So it's probably good, and certainly don't know Tepe or anybody else that might be presenting.
Right.
So I think it's probably good to let people, see, and I'm certainly not wedded to DNW. I just know that having done the pre-feasibility, they got a lot of information that we may not have to rehash.
Well, they'll still make you do the educational visioning again, all
Yeah.
that. You'll
Yeah.
have to go through that whole process.
But we might be able to do it quicker.
Whole thing?
Yes, quicker.
Okay, all right. All right, is there any other, so it appears we're gonna be meeting 2 weeks from tonight, April 15th. Not
Yep.
tax night, so day, so you're gonna be okay. And then we will tentatively, hopefully, get an idea on Monday whether we can meet 2 weeks after that on the 29th. Okay? Is that good for everybody?
Yep.
All right, any other issues, any other things to discuss? Hearing
For me.
none. Yep. Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, guys. Do we have any update on the Greenwood roof of them coming back to fix those wet insulation spots?
He sent me a email, Phil, late today.
Okay,
And we'll put it on for 2 weeks from tonight.
thank
There
you.
was, they did whatever they did. Remember, they were gonna go there Wednesday. Or yesterday, and I think they did what they were supposed to do. But I didn't have a chance to go through the whole thing.
Okay, thanks.
But we'll have it in the 2 weeks. Another thing to do. All right, anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
And all in favor, click leave meeting.
Aye.
Night, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for a
everybody.
long
Thank
and
you.
good week.